Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Dairy TV. We hope that you've been following all the lessons that we are putting on this channel. Before we continue, remember to subscribe to this channel. Today, we are going to be looking at how cows speak. Did you know that cows actually speak? Can I say that cows sometimes speak louder and more clearer than some people? It's interesting, but it is true. We shall be looking at how then do cows speak, and all farmers should be able to understand when cows are speaking to them, what cows want, so that you can take action on what cows are telling you. We'll be looking at some of the languages that we see in the barn, and then we'll also be looking at what actions should be needed when the cows speak to you. So before I carry on, I'd like to say that the whole concept of cows' language is captured in cow signals. So I acknowledge cow signals as a concept that was developed by certain dairy experts led by Jan Holsen, and we'd like to make that acknowledgement because we are getting a lot of information from the cow signals concept and cow signals materials. So let's go straight to how cows speak. The first language, when you walk into the barn, one thing you might see is cows having a lot of leftover food. If you have served your cows with the required ration, the required mix of the feed, but then you see that they have eaten half, or they have eaten just a bit of it, and they have walked away from the feeding area, and their rumens are still not full. You can see the rumen is not full, maybe it is half full, or just about to be full, but they have walked away from the feed, and there's still a lot of feed in the trough. What they are saying, they don't have much interest in that feed. Maybe it is time to begin to check, is the feed well mixed? Is it tasty? Is it palatable? Is it attractive? Because cows are going to be attracted to feeds that are tasty and have no smell. So clean, tasty, and that are easily palatable. So cows will tell you that by just leaving the feed and making sure that you begin to see they are not interested in that feed. The next signal that you're going to see when you walk in the barn, and that's why it's very important to always walk around the barn. Don't just look from a distance, get into where the cows are and look at it. From the back, from the front. You will see cows standing for long hours. This cow could be saying that either they have a discomfort, so they're not able to lie. In most cases, a hock injury, or maybe a lameness on the hoof. They're not able to lie down. Or the bedding is uncomfortable. It's too hard and too uncomfortable. So they try to stand as long as possible to avoid the discomfort of lying. So you should be able to do something about it so that these cows, especially the heavy cows, can be able to rest for longer, 12 hours, sometimes even for heavy cows, 14 hours, and they're able to ruminate properly when they are resting. Remember, when cows stand for too long, they spend a lot of energy to support their standing structure, and that takes away the energy that would have been used for making the milk. So watch out for that sign. The other way is for cows sleeping on the walking alleys. There's a place cows are supposed to feed, there's a place cows are supposed to sleep. For the barns that are having cubicles at their system for bedding, then you find that cows, instead of sleeping where it has been designed for them to sleep, they tend to look for somewhere else to sleep. This could be saying several things. Either the cubicles are very small, so the cows are finding themselves uncomfortable, getting in and getting out, or most likely the cubicles are hot. So they are trying to run away from the heat and coming to sleep somewhere else. So they choose where to sleep. But in most cases, when they sleep on the alley, it's also very hot. So there's no better place. The cubicle is hot and the alley is hot. So the heat stress becomes a problem. So again, check out on that so that you can be able to know what do you do to the bedding area to ensure that the cows are not sleeping in the wrong places. Because when they sleep on the alley, then they also put the dung on the alley, and the drainage of that dung to the expected areas becomes a problem. The other thing that we see, how cows speak to us, is sleeping in different positions inside the cubicle. And I'm talking here about the barns where cubicles are used and not the free stalls. You find that the cow is either sleeping facing this side, with the head facing this side, or they are lying diagonally across the cubicle. Instead of straight on to the cubicle, they are having to lie diagonally. There could be some things that the cow is saying there. One is that the cubicle is small, therefore they're not able to fit in. Or two, there's a barrier at the head side of the cubicle. So when the cow lies down, they are not able to lung their head forward, and therefore, to be able to keep their head free from the blockage that you have put on the cubicle, then they look for another position so that they can be able to lung forward and have some space around her head. So again, we always discourage, don't put a block, don't block the head side of the cubicle. Let cows be able to lung forward their heads if they need to be lying straight with their head facing forward. Do not force cows to lie diagonally or to always push their heads to lie on their shoulders because they can't put their head straight. So check out for cows lying diagonally on the farm. All those discomforts, they also cost you, because when cows don't eat naturally, then of course they eat less. If they have heat stress, they eat less, and then they end up giving you less milk. And maybe you provided very good food, you provided very clean water, but then because the cows are uncomfortable, they are having to look for ways of how to cope with that environment, because the environment is not optimal for their comfort and for their feeding. We continue discussing this, how the cows speak to us, the signs that they show to us so that we can take an action. But for now, we take a break, and when we come back, we continue looking at how do cows speak to us. See you after the break.
For us as bio, we believe in quality first, and one of the ways we want to ensure that is by we have to maintain quality from the farm. Even before the milk arrives here, quality is maintained from the farm and throughout the transportation chain up to bio. We really do a lot of tests just to ensure that the final end product is up to the standards that are required, not just by bio, but also the KEB standard and also the KDB as what is required. We have already adopted a quality-based payment system. This is where we are encouraging farmers to give us milk that of course of high quality, and with that they are able to get more bonuses. We give the farmers bonuses based on the TPC values. Below 100,000, we give them a 2 shillings bonus. Even for butterfat and protein, we also give them bonus. One of also the other ways that we encourage these farmers to give us good quality raw milk is sometimes we cater the cost of the testing, such as the antibiotic kit. I mentioned that one of the ways that we encourage this kind of quality raw milk is that we provide with them antibiotic kits so that they can do prior testing even before they provide us with the milk. And also we do cater for the transport of the milk. We use our own trucks so that we ensure quality along the transport chain. So for me, to the dairy consumers, I think the world is now moving just from food production but to quality food production, and they should ensure that whatever they are taking as the dairy products meet the right quality. So it's very important for consumers to ensure that whatever they are taking in as dairy products meet the right quality and meet the right standards.
Welcome back. Now, we are looking at how cows speak to us. Now, the next way cows speak to us is when they are feeding, when they're having their feed around the troughs. Now, you'll notice several things there. One, you may see cows trying to get their leg out of the barn into the feeding trough. That is very likely in places where either the feed is getting too far from the trough and they want to reach it. In that case, you just drive the feed back near them so that they can be able to feed. Or two, and this is the most likely, is where the feed trough, the surface, is a little bit lower than where they are stepping. If you remember, naturally, cows are going to be feeding on the pastures, feeding a little higher than where they are stepping. So when you make an unnatural feeding position where they have to feed a little deeper than where they're stepping, then they're likely to either put their leg in most of the time or push the feed fence. When they push the feed fence, two things are likely to happen. Either they're going to collapse the fence if it is weak, they might sustain some injuries, or if the feed fence is too strong, too permanent in terms of structure, metallic structures and so on, then they are going to develop wounds on their shoulders, and that is likely to attract further infections of the cow. So you may find yourself treating diseases because you expose the cow to those wounds, because the design of feeding is not good. So those are some of the things that they are likely to speak to us when they are feeding. But then the other part is also selective feeding. When they are feeding in a TMR situation, you find that cows are able to select the feeds that they like and to leave the feeds that they don't like. This happens a lot when there are some very long chops, and we discussed the issue of chopping and chop sizes when we were talking about the maize silage. If the chops are too long and some feed is too coarse and too hard, then they're likely to go for what they like and they leave the others. If it is about dairy meal inside the feed, like we said, total mixed ration, then they're likely to reach the dairy meal which they like, or reach the concentrates, and then they leave out the fodder. By the time they go to rest, then you discover that on the leftover feed, they are making holes, a lot of holes on the feed. That means they are trying to reach out for some things and to leave out others. That one is called selective feeding. That then means cows are telling you some feeds are not interesting for them. They may come back to it if they are still hungry and the feed is not replaced, but most importantly, it's good to check selective feeding so that you can address the feed issue. And if it's about the positioning of the trough and where the cows are stepping, then you can address it and the cows are going to be safer. Then when they are not feeding, then there are other signs that you see. Cows standing in one place and beginning to lift their legs in turns. They'll lift the right leg, the other time the left leg for some time, and then down. This means that cows have been standing for long and they are tired, or they are lame. They have paining hooves, a lot of discomfort in the hooves. They are trying to balance to see whether they can be able to relieve the leg from holding their weight, and then the other leg can also hold the weight. So somehow they are struggling to stand normally because they are lame. Check the hooves of the cows. Check if they have any injuries. Check if they have other issues that could be preventing movement. Of course, sick cows that have other diseases could also behave the same way. But it's very important to see our cows standing and lifting the legs, and other times bringing the legs down. That is very important when you want to detect lameness. Some farms have managed to put some technologies where they're able to check the movement of the cow, and they're able to detect which cow has the least movement in the pack. Then they're able to say, maybe this cow has a problem with the hooves, and that's where the cow is not moving. Another way that cow speaks to us is how they are socializing. We have talked about cows speaking when they are feeding and when they are lying down, but they also have a life when they are socializing. Now in that case, if you see cows raising their heads when they are walking or having to turn around, it means that they are getting stressed. Now, normally or naturally, cows walk with their heads drooping, not raising, unless they are on heat. But then, if a cow faces a stranger, if a cow is having to encounter a new person in the farm and the person is walking behind them, because cows have a blind spot, they have to turn around to see that person. So they keep turning so that they are always seeing that person. And if the person is someone they are familiar with, then of course they are used to them, they may not do that. When cows raise their heads when they're walking and they look alert and they're turning around, then probably they are getting stressed. There could be a stranger in the farm, or there could be some things they're not comfortable with in the farm. Now also, cows have also the habit of licking on each other. That might happen in normal socialization. But however, if you see that this habit is happening a lot, licking, especially if it goes to licking walls or licking surfaces, licking the bedding, or maybe it is sand that has been put as a bedding, then that also means that cows could be lacking some minerals. It is very important that the diet that you give is well mixed in so that they're not lacking anything. Otherwise, in the process of licking those surfaces, they are also likely to attract or to get some infections through germs, and therefore it's good to give the right minerals so that they don't show that kind of a sign. So that's very important also to check how cows are behaving. This is why it's actually advised that every manager or the owner, when they are walking around the farm, you don't just walk in a hurry, but you keep checking what are cows doing at any one time so that you can pick the signals. The last way in this episode is about cows sticking their heads out into the air. In most cases, looking to cool themselves off, or trying to get some air and getting themselves out of an area that is either hot, too enclosed, or too damp. If you put structures in such a way that they are dampening and there's no way of drying the areas, then cows begin to look for spaces and stick their head out or their nostrils out, try to get some air. Again, that says the environment is either too dusty or too hot or too damp. Always check out for that so that you're able to prepare your barns in a nice way and cows are comfortable without having to show such signs. Most importantly is that whenever cows show signs or speak to us, then we should act. So that if they're expressing a discomfort, then we know that we need to do something. If they are moving away from natural behavior, then you try as much as possible, even though they're in a barn, to try and bring them to the natural way of living, natural feeding, natural lying, natural walking and drinking, and all other things that they do in the barn. I have to say that there are many other ways that cows speak. In fact, for you who is at the farm, you will see more and more things. What is important is to know that cows speak to us. I began by saying, isn't it amazing that sometimes cows speak to us more clearly and more louder than some people? Maybe that's true, maybe it is not. But it's good to always see what are cows telling us. So the signs of how cows speak can be more than that. But for this episode, we covered a few which are very important. Now you can be able to raise your alertness so that you are sensitive to what cows are telling us, so that when they speak to us, we are able to respond. If we don't respond, things get bad and we may lose value from our dairy farms. This brings us to the end of this episode of how do cows speak to us. Keep to the channel so that you can be able to see and view more lessons from us, and remember to subscribe to Dairy TV.